Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Ollie Barrett and these are the headlines. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says nuclear war is in the minds of Western politicians and not Russians. Ukraine's President Zelensky says 16,000 foreign volunteers are travelling to Ukraine to help the country's cause and warns Russia it will have to pay the full price for its actions. Residents of Ukraine's southeast city of Enerhodar, the home of Europe's largest nuclear power plant, are blocking the entrance to prevent Russian troops from gaining access. One million refugees have fled Ukraine in the weeks since Russia's invasion, according to the United Nations. Thousands join anti-war protests around the world, including those crowding into St. Mark's Square in Venice in Italy and St. Peter's Square at the Vatican. They're there to condemn Russia's actions in Ukraine. And the euro sinks to its lowest level against the pound since mid-2016 as the Ukraine conflict triggers concerns over the eurozone's economic recovery from the pandemic. As threats to sanction Russia's oligarchs intensify across Western nations, the Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich has put the club world champions Chelsea up for sale. The oligarch was facing growing pressure and promises that he will donate money from the sale to war victims in Ukraine. Abramovich has always denied that he has close links to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Abramovich's decision was revealed hours after fresh calls for him to face sanctions, which came in the British Parliament. But Prime Minister Boris Johnson refused to comment on the Chelsea owner.
Mr. Speaker, Roman Abramovich is the owner of Chelsea Football Club and various other high-value assets in the United Kingdom. He's a person of interest to the Home Office because of his links to the Russian state and his public association with corrupt activity and practices. Last week, the Prime Minister said that Abramovich is facing sanctions. He later corrected the record to say that he isn't. Well, why on earth isn't he?
Mr. Speaker, it's not appropriate for me to comment on individual cases at this stage, and it is. But what I can say, and I stand, Mr. Speaker, by what I've said in the House and what we've put on the record.
Abramovich is thought to value Chelsea at over $3 billion, and Swiss billionaire Hans-Jörg Wyss has emerged as one of the frontrunners to buy the West London club. Abramovich insists the sale will not be fast-tracked, but other interested parties are set to make their initial bids before the 15th of March. Roman Abramovich has Israeli and Portuguese citizenship. He became one of Russia's most powerful businessmen after the 1991 breakup of the Soviet Union. Forbes has his net worth at $13.3 billion. The news was greeted by many Chelsea fans with dismay. They digested the news while watching their club seal a 3-2 win in the fifth round of the FA Cup.
It's really a shame because Abramovich has brought success to Chelsea. We won everything. We're the champions of the world. We're champions of Europe. And it's a shame, actually, what's happening in Ukraine. And others, like Roman Abramovich, has to pay the price, including all the supporters.
Russian affairs analyst Dr. Anna Matvieva joins me now. And Dr. Matvieva, the UK says there will be more sanctions coming against Russian oligarchs, but opposition lawmakers here in Britain say that London is lagging behind some other countries in levelling those sanctions. Where is the disconnect here, do you think? And does it have anything to do with UK officials trying to ensure that any sanctions don't lead to legal challenges?
Well, absolutely, yes, because we now heard today that Mikhail Friedman and Peter Aven, who have assets in United Kingdom, including in Holland and Barnet, and in other companies, are facing now asset freeze, which means that a lot of jobs are potentially going to go. And that would mean that the UK companies and UK jobs will take a hit. Moreover, these oligarchs are saying that we have not done anything personally to support this war. Friedman actually came out against Putin's war. There is no evidence that oligarchs have been consulted or that President Putin cares one way or another whether they are squeezed or not. So in terms of stopping the war, it makes really no difference. It makes only the UK open to legal challenges. These people have money, they have lawyers, and they will be really pressing the case that they are prosecuted, not because they have anything to do with the war, but because they are just prosecuted and Russian. So we are going to see a massive waste of time and money and more scandal coming in.
And for those oligarchs who've been sanctioned already, and for those who fear they might be in place for imminent sanctions, how easy is it for them to pull their money out from the UK anyway?
Well, it's probably not easy, but it doesn't mean that all of their money is in the UK. So they will have multiple jurisdictions, so they will have also companies which are not in their name, which will be probably difficult to trace to them immediately. So they will be very difficult to bring a criminal case against them, which would allow that kind of freeze, because there is no evidence that they have been personally responsible of what is happening. So yes, there have been offshore jurisdictions, and there is Russian money, but there is also other people's money, and they will be also joint ownership with other people, with other companies. So this kind of people would have a network of opportunities, which would, yes, they will take a hit, but that is not going to make them really poor and miserable, and at the end of their tetras. But it will also. It is an example
Dr.
that
Matvieva, thank you very much indeed. We can go to Anas Malik now, our reporter who is live at the border with Poland. Anas, tell us exactly where you are. What are you seeing?
Well, I'm about 40 minutes from the Medica border. There's a town called Zershov. That's where I'm standing. And to one end, it's basically the junction that joins two borders. One side goes to Karachova. That's the Polish. That's one of the Polish and Ukrainian borders, and the other end goes to Medica, the commonly known, where we've seen those visuals coming out, those harrowing visuals coming out, emotional visuals coming out. I've seen reinforcement of border guards going in because in order to handle the amount of influx that's coming in from Ukraine into Poland. Remember, Poland has taken the most number of refugees in the past 8 8 days, and the refugee count now stands over a million. A million people have been displaced from Ukraine in the past 8 days, and Poland holds about 52% of those refugees, those who are leaving their livelihood behind in Ukraine and shifting to Poland. Ollie?
Anas, tell me about some of the people you've been speaking to who've been leaving Ukraine. Are they planning to stay in Poland or make journeys further from Poland? Do they expect to be able to go home to Ukraine anytime soon? What are they thinking about the future?
Well, there have been emotional people that I have met. It's been an emotional ride for them. First, the journey that they have taken from their respective cities or areas all the way to the Lviv border and then onwards to the crossing. It was not easy. Some say that they've walked at least 6 to 7 kilometers as well. They look forward to going back to their normal lives. But one thing that is unified is the fact that they condemn the Russian aggression. They condemn the attack, and they say that it is not the situation that they would have ever thought of to be to leave everything behind and move, and in order to start fresh. They hope and rather aspire to go back to their country, to go back to their livelihood, to continue doing the same what they were doing. But as we speak, the chances of that are pretty dim and grim at this point of time. But there is this sense, there is this zeal and enthusiasm within the people that they have to go back and serve their country. Ollie?
Okay, Anas, thank you. That's Anas Malik, our reporter, who is live close to the Poland-Ukraine border. Well, more than 1 million people have fled Ukraine into neighbouring countries since Russia launched its full-scale invasion a week ago. We'll be hearing a lot more from Anas Malik about many of those people in the coming days here on WION. The UN Refugee Agency says more than 4 million Ukrainian refugees may eventually need protection and assistance. Just over half of those who have fled Ukraine have crossed west into Poland. Before the crisis, Poland was already home to around 1.5 million Ukrainians. That's why Anas Malik is there, and as I say, we will be hearing a lot more from Anas here on WION in the coming days. In a bid to take major cities, Russia has ramped up its strikes on Ukraine. Its forces appear to have become more aggressive in targeting Ukraine's infrastructure. Major cities like Kiev, Kharkiv and Kherson are witnessing an increase of missile and artillery strikes. The latest satellite imagery released by Maxar shows the extent of the damage in Ukraine after days of fighting. This image is from the village of Rivnopilya in Chernihiv region, roughly 80 kilometers from Kiev. In Chernihiv, a bridge across the Strizhen River appears to have been destroyed. There is clear damage to residential buildings and a factory there. A Russian military convoy is visible nearby, and there are long lines of people waiting outside supermarkets. This is Sukachi, a small town just 70 kilometers northwest of Kiev. You can make out a large impact crater there, with houses nearby appearing to have taken significant damage as well. Bucha is another small town outside of Kiev, south of Antonov Airport. There are burnt-out Russian military vehicles in a residential area, abandoned after being damaged in fighting. The images also show the build-up of activity at several border crossing points. Pictures of long queues and of people and cars waiting at Luzhanka border crossing. There are people waiting to enter into neighbouring Hungary, Slovakia and Romania. Now, these pictures were captured on February the 28th by Maxar Technologies. Since then, cloud cover has made it difficult for satellites to observe quite as much detail. But the company is inspecting the latest satellite photos and says there should be more high-resolution pictures available soon. Ukraine and Russia are set to hold another round of talks at the border between Belarus and Poland.
Как вы знаете, на прошлой встрече мы обсудили позиции, а также огласили ряд предложений Российской Федерации, взаимосвязанных с немедленным режимом прекращения по ряду предложений. Мы, в общем-то, нашли взаимопонимание даже за столом переговоров, но, однако, по некоторым наиболее принципиальным из них, что вполне ожидаемо, украинская сторона взяла время на размышления и на консультации с Киевом.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed there would be no change from the Ukrainian delegation's position, and that delegation includes the Minister of Defense, advisor to the President of Ukraine, and Ukraine's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. The Ukrainian Foreign Minister says Kiev is ready for talks with Moscow, but will not accept any Russian ultimatums. Zelensky earlier accused the Kremlin of trying to force him into concessions by continuing to press forward with its invasion.
Вимоги росіян, в принципі, залишаються незмінними. Це ті вимоги, які озвучив Путін у своєму зверненні перед початком війни, по суті, оголошуючи нам війну. Зараз ми готові до переговорів, ми готові до дипломатії, але ми в жодному разі не готові до прийняття будь-яких російських ультиматумів. Коли відбудуться нові переговори, наразі невідомо.
The Russian delegation is being led by Vladimir Putin's aide and cultural advisor Vladimir Medinsky. Earlier, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov slammed Kiev, saying that Moscow was ready for another round of negotiations, but claiming the Ukrainian side was playing for time on the instructions of the United States. The first round of talks took place on February the 28th near the Belarus-Ukraine border. That did not produce a breakthrough. The Russian delegation says both parties found certain points on which common positions could be foreseen in those earlier talks. Zelensky's office is understood to have demanded the withdrawal of all Russian troops, including those in Crimea and Donbass. The US military has decided to postpone a test launch of Minuteman III, an intercontinental ballistic missile. The decision comes in a bid to lower tensions after Russia announced it was putting its nuclear forces on high alert. Russian President Vladimir Putin's announcement fanned fears that Russia's invasion of Ukraine could trigger nuclear escalation. On Monday, the Russian Defense Ministry said its nuclear missile forces and Northern and Pacific fleets had been placed on enhanced combat duty after Vladimir Putin's order. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov then said that any Third World War would be a nuclear conflict. The Pentagon has condemned Russian rhetoric and says it hopes the decision to delay its ICBM test will serve as an example for Moscow.
Both the United States and Russia have long agreed that nuclear employment could have devastating consequences. And we both agreed, most recently this year, in the context of the P5 statement, that a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. Such provocative rhetoric and possible changes to nuclear posture involving the most consequential weapons in our respective arsenals is unacceptable. The United States has not taken any similar steps. And so in an effort to demonstrate that we have no intention in engaging in any actions that could be misunderstood or misconstrued, the Secretary of Defense has directed that our Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile test launch, scheduled for this week, to be postponed.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken slammed Putin's nuclear rhetoric.
Provocative rhetoric about nuclear weapons is the height of irresponsibility. It's dangerous. It adds to the risk of miscalculation. It needs to be avoided.
The nuclear-capable Minuteman III is a key part of the American military's strategic arsenal. It has a range of 6,000 plus miles. It can travel at a speed of 24,000 kilometers an hour. The United Nations General Assembly has overwhelmingly adopted a resolution against Russia. It demands Moscow immediately withdraw from Ukraine. After more than 2 days of debate, the resolution serves as a rebuke of Moscow's invasion by a vast majority of the world's countries.
Today we call on Russia to stop its unprovoked, unjustified, unconscionable war.
In an historic meeting, the United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly voted to reprimand Russia for invading Ukraine and demanded that Moscow stop fighting and withdraw its military forces.
The General Assembly has spoken.
The resolution Wednesday was supported by 141 of the Assembly's 193 members and passed in a rare emergency session called by the UN Security Council, as Ukrainian forces battle to defend itself in the face of a Russian invasion that has forced hundreds of thousands to flee. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
First of all, to put the vote in the UN in perspective, it is both overwhelming and I would even say historic. Go back to 2014 when the General Assembly pronounced itself on Russia's initial aggression against Ukraine. The votes in favor of that resolution were 100.
The last time the Security Council convened an emergency session of the General Assembly was in 1982. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Linda Thomas-Greenfield called it an extraordinary moment and urged members to hold Moscow accountable for its violations of international law.
If the United Nations has any purpose, it is to prevent war. It is to condemn war, to stop war. That is our job here today. It is the job you were sent here to do, not just by your capitals, but by all of humanity.
She accused Russia of using weapons that violate international laws, including cluster munitions and vacuum bombs. Russia's UN envoy denied Moscow was targeting civilians and accused Western governments of pressuring Assembly members to pass the resolution. Russia was joined by Belarus, which has served as a launch pad for Russian invasion forces, Eritrea, North Korea, and Syria in voting against the resolution. 35 members abstained, including China.
As shelling intensifies in Kiev, its residents have set up camp in underground bunkers and subway stations. Hospitals have shifted patients into basements, including pregnant women who are waiting to give birth.
This is the cellar of a hospital in the Ukrainian capital, and it's what a maternity ward now looks like in Kiev while the city is under attack by Russian forces.
I woke up on 24th of February at 5 o'clock in the morning from the heat that I heard, the explosion, and then I heard women started to cry and scream. The war started.
Alina Shinkar is 32 weeks pregnant with her first child. She was admitted to one of Kiev's maternity hospitals 2 weeks ago because of pregnancy complications. A week later, bombs and artillery began to fall.
And I couldn't believe. I thought it's some nightmare. But this is what it is. This is how we're living.
Amid the nightmare, new life. A mother who said her name was Yula delivered her son Mark on Sunday night.
I came here on the first day of the war because I was pregnant, and 28 February I had my son. His name is Mark, with C. And we are in safe here. The best personnel, the best staff in the world works here, and we are very proud of them.
Dmytro Govseyev is the head of the maternity hospital. He said his staff now basically live here alongside their patients.
Most of our team have not left the building since February 24th. About 70% of staff stay here permanently. We take turns at work.
Russia's invasion is increasingly bloody and without an end anywhere in sight. That hasn't stopped some here from hoping for a brighter future.
Hopefully this one will see peace.
Now, amid the horror, stories of bravery, love and hope are resonating across the world as well. We will leave you with the story of an Indian couple who fled Ukraine. Do stay tuned to WION. I'm Ollie Barrett in London.
Meet Harsh Panwar and Reva Srivastava, two medical students from India studying at a university in western Ukraine. They met, fell in love, and were living a perfectly normal college life until they found themselves in the middle of a war.
On 24th, when we heard the first siren, it was very scary, like what is going to happen. So we just went into the bunkers downstairs to our buildings, and we were just there waiting for the situation to be better. But then there was again a second siren, then we were more scared. Then we spent like 2-3 hours in the bunkers. Then when we felt like it was normal, then we came back.
Russia launched a full-blown invasion of Ukraine. Troops, tanks and airstrikes started pounding Ukraine's border cities. And the war started closing in on the entire country from all sides. And just like many others, Harsh and Reva tried to flee. They joined long queues of people trying to escape from the war zone. They managed to cross over to neighboring Romania.
It's just like crossing the border from cruelty to hospitality, because we were just totally out of our mind, like what do we have to do now? Like from 2 days we were on the roads without any shelter, without any facilities, and they were just treating us like nothing. There was no management, there were no officials who are going to manage anything.
From the Romanian border, they joined a large group of foreign students who were being driven to small villages. Their group was dropped off at a village near the main airport. Harsh and Reva spent the night at a wedding venue with fairy lights hanging from the ceiling, a stark contrast to the reality they had just escaped.
After that first shelter, we came here last night. We spent the night very peacefully, and we are not at all afraid about anything. In Ukraine, we were afraid about the war and all, but here it is very peaceful.
It's just beautiful. It's a treat to eyes. It's just so beautiful. We just forget that we are here to be evacuated to our country. We are feeling like we are on the vacation to Romania.
We actually don't want to leave this place.
The space, which has not hosted a wedding since October last year, now accommodates over 100 people, with volunteers donating mattresses, sheets and other essential items. Some other Indian students who also fled to Romania hope to return to Ukraine one day.
You want to come back where?
In Ukraine.
Free Ukraine.
Yeah, not any territory of Russia.
So we all are praying the war will be stopped. We can go to our university, complete that degree and live our life.
This war in Ukraine is robbing many not just of their present but also their future. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
This is right, Arab.